Hello, folks. It feels like it's been a while for us, and I think it actually will have been for you, too, thanks to my amazing work schedule. But you are live back again with Lit Literature. And you are here for a special discussion tonight with some of the normal team, not the whole team, but that's okay. We'll still have fun. And this is your host, the Demon, a.k.a. JP. Oh, I did that backwards. From Arizona. Well, actually, I don't know where he's from.
Yes, today the captain is recording from a Revelator bar. There's an awesome party going on here right now, and it looks like a drink company came in and they brought in a bunch of these purple drinks. Looks really fun. I'm gonna have a great time.
Oh, God. Get lit.
Good.
Purple drinks. Time to get lit, baby.
Yeah, any cute redheads there?
Yes, there is. There is. She's really loud and boisterous and causing a little bit of a scene. Looks like she might be stirring up some trouble, but it's all fun.
All right.
Sounds fun.
And the cherry here, just from our table of drinks.
All right.
Got the
table of
hitman.
drinks.
One more in the council.
Sweet. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
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 Okay, today, if you haven't seen it already, if you're just listening to us on the radio or podcast or wherever you're listening to us, we are here to discuss a book called American Parable. It's book one of the series Ashes and Embers by Christian Sterling. And this is pretty cool because this guy's kind of a new author, and so we wanted to get this new books, new talent, new interest on the podcast, and we wanted to read something also super different. Though I'm sure we'll be back to Brandon Sanderson soon and pretty close to next, as we discussed. However, we did want to check out something new. And I guess we'll just start by getting initial feelings. I personally was a bit surprised by this. I found that it was a little unique. I definitely had my gripes with it, but overall I was really entertained. I quite liked a lot of components and pieces to it. I definitely feel that he's up and coming in his craft and then he has some growth, but I felt the same way about a lot of authors that I've read in like reading, for example, Elantris or even Mistborn compared to Stormlight Archive. I think just, authors take a while to find their zone, and also this craft seems like an insane thing to develop when you're writing giant books. So that's my thoughts initially. Mm-hmm. We'll just go round.
Yeah, I would agree. I like what I've read so far. We finished up part one, and normally what I read on my own free time is some kind of more long-winded authors from like the late 18th century, 19th century. So this was a really good break because this Christian Sterling's Economy of Language is a refreshing change of pace for me. A lot of his sentences are short and to the point.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of other stuff that I just kind of read, on my own is kind of the exact opposite, where it takes an entire paragraph to relay one idea. That is definitely not the case with this book. The average chapter in part one is only like 4 or 5 pages. Yeah. So it's a very, very swift read, for sure.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that, personally.
Yeah, it's really fast.
Like, wow, bam.
I like the characters and how he develops them, and I'm interested in what they're going to do and how they're going to survive this upcoming war. But, I forgot what I was going to say. I do wish
we know King Ben.
there's a little bit less characters. There's so many characters that...
There's a lot.
Who was this again? Even though I just read it about you like 2 minutes ago.
We'll actually save that thought. I think we're all going to comment on this in a second. It was just my experience reading. But let's save that until right after we get all the way through. Not that I'm cutting you off, Hitman, if you've got other points, though.
I'll stuff will come up later.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. So starting out, I think it started a little bit, for me, particularly slow. It's maybe not slow, but I wasn't super interested. It's definitely a big break from what I normally read, being like in the sci-fi fantasy genre. And it took a little bit for me to really start getting into it. But once you really start to kind of piece together who these characters are and actually maybe start to remember who they are, you really start to get some cool dynamics and like really interested in what's going to happen next. So I think it started off a little bit slow, but as it's kind of been picking up over particularly the last few chapters of part 1, it really started to get my interest in actually like, okay, now what are the possibilities? Where is this going? Who's kind of talking to who's working with who, that type of stuff.
Something to keep in mind, too, is in a book 1 and in the first half of a book 1, oftentimes it's laying out all the groundwork and the setup. So that when we think about that, I think it makes sense. I want to get back to Ben's comment real quick on the characters. Funny story. So as the captain mentioned, the chapters are short and to the point. The dialogue I find is swift and realistic for our time, I think, and the author's experience is my guess. Especially the interaction between the friends.
There's some of those interactions I can see our groups doing stuff just like that.
Yeah, just it seemed very like it flowed super easy. The one thing is about the characters, for short chapters and quick points, and constantly flipping from different locations and different groups. In like the first 3 chapters, I've already got like 12. By the time we got back again for the second round at the Revelators, I was like, shit, who is who again? Was Marco that guy, or Dave, or who was who again? And then like the way the dialogue was so quick too, it just took me, I think it was like several chapters later before it dawned on me again that no, Marco was hitting on the waitress and he liked the waitress. The funny guy, the tall guy, Sam, I got him right away. Because his dialogue was very consistent. Between Marco's perspective and David's perspective, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Who's who? Yeah.
So, and like that happened a few times. So now that we're halfway through book 1, it's settling into me a little bit. I'm getting these characters.
And it's funny because all these names are so simple. Just everyday names that I know. They're not weird, fancy names that I've never come across before.
I wonder if that's part of the problem, though.
It makes it so much harder to like really distinguish because it's such a normal name that it kind of glosses over the character.
It does, yeah. Yeah, that's one part where, because the chapters are so short, you know, the author is able to get through a lot of different elements and components to the story, but because of that, he introduces, like, a whole group of characters in each chapter, and then you're left being like, oh, crap, who is who? You know, when you flip around, when you circle back to the same group of characters.
I personally was wishing that they could have merged all these side characters into just one. So in the Revelators, they could have been just there's Jesse, his son, and then all those Sam and all those other guys could have been merged into just one character, and then there could have been the posse to take some of the dialogue cues that like get some of the conversation going. And I think it would have been a little bit easier to follow, and it would just been a little bit more seamless for me, I think.
I was thinking about that too. I think the one thing for me is he might have all these plans later for side arcs that just aren't coming alive yet. Yeah. But what would have helped to me is if you're going to have that many characters, if you don't want to combine them into one, like they might do if they ever made it into a show, right? Like they would just combine a bunch of these characters into one guy who could have all these lines. But I think if he wants to develop these side stories later, it might be beneficial to group like 3 chapters of the Revelators together first. Together, and then shift locations. For me, it felt like, bam, 5 pages, next location, bam, 10 more characters, next location, bam, 10 more characters, back,
I
bam.
agree with you. That's what I was
like,
thinking.
holy shit.
We structured a little bit to get the group more, you get more of the Revelators, more of the young guns.
Grow with them a little, and then shift location.
Because
I agree.
Unlike Josh, I do like all the characters. I think it adds more to the story. It's not just 2 people and then background people.
Well, I think that I think my favorite chapters to read about were actually the young guns, and it's literally just Panda and
Alan,
and then all the kids. which is almost like that same structure that I was describing. And it was very easy when you got to them to just, I mean, there were a couple people because they were like some of the local gang leaders or whatever, but names that would come up, but they were mostly unimportant. And it was really just remembering those two. And then maybe even like the kid, I guess I'm assuming he's going to be...
Cole.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess there's Cole, but I was thinking even the kid Jamal.
Oh, the new kid.
The new kid, like he's gonna have some part.
Spy.
But it's just when there's
what
only
I thought.
Yeah, spy.
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. But when there's just such a small like a focus on a smaller group, like just a really 1, 2, 3 people max, makes it a lot easier to kind of follow through. And I felt like I also liked their story, even though I have some theories on what they're doing. But I liked that dynamic of that house, and Alan seemed to be, to me, a more developed character. Well, maybe not more developed, but he had a very good like story that I could kind of relate to. Like he's like this intelligent, he's really good with computers, kind of like a reluctant leader, and going back to like, all right, this seems like the protagonist almost, like this is like the good guy, this is the guy that I can kind of get behind of, and especially when you hear about like kind of what they're doing, they're taking in like all these orphan kids and they're watching them in like the Baton Rouge area. It just, I really like that was one of my favorite kind of like I like that arc a lot, and kind of like hearing about those characters.
Speaking of that, I want to bring something up that I would like to hear your guys' comments on. So each of these gangs has their leader, or their maybe not current leader, but what I think might eventually be a current leader, depending on the output of the story. But you get Juan Carlos, or no, that's right?
Yeah,
Juan Carlos.
that's right. Yeah, Juan Carlos.
And Juan Carlos, you're introduced with him basically torturing somebody.
Hey, Demon, it's actually Juan Carlo Leon.
Oh, that's it. Juan Carlo Leon. Yeah. And they call him for short Juan Carlo. That's it. So Juan Carlo is like torturing somebody. You got David, the son of the Revelator Jesse, the Revelator leader Jesse, who's just like fucking around with his boys. Who one of them's trying to hit on a girl at a cafeteria, and then you have David. Alan, who's in New Orleans. Trying to save kids off the streets, but is clearly a gang environment as well. And the thing I was thinking of is, well, okay, so you've got the Mexican gang and the white gang and the black gang. And all of them were introduced differently, but all of them don't seem very racist.
Right.
I mean, they're like kind of. So I guess in this like utopia,
Dystopia?
Dystopia.
Well,
it's a mix of like a post-apocalyptic.
This post-apocalyptic gangs. It almost feels like they're truly killing each other because of the gang and the turf. Like they almost seem like corporations, like fighting each other over.
Big Comcast and Time Warner was
exactly. So
you got this side, you got this side.
But what did you think of the intro of those leaders? I mean, like. Or maybe soon to be leaders.
I mean, I think that he builds a lot off of the idea of perspectives. Like you, like kind of each person you get to know them. You're like, I can kind of see what they're doing. I understand it. Maybe you don't agree with it, but still, like you're like, all right, I get it. There hasn't been this is your. I mean, they haven't come out right out and said it, but they haven't gone through and said like these are your bad guys. This is like the enemy type thing. You kind of get it a little bit with like the rich elite might be playing some games here, so I'm assuming they'll be bad in the end. But everyone, they're pretty even in terms of how I feel that they're just out to survive. They're trying to like kind of band together.
I feel like they're doing bad things, they're breaking the law and the stealing, but they don't feel themselves as villains. And when we read the chapters, we don't feel.
You don't feel them,
as villains.
Exactly.
Seems like a loss.
Right. Even when like Juan Carlo was torturing the guy, you saw his humanity afterwards, and like he just wanted to wash his hands and like, why did I have to do this?
Yeah, and he obviously was remorseful of that whole interaction too, and you can see like everyone at every point is almost just like, why are we doing this? And you're kind of that frustrated like onlooker where you're like, yeah, why the hell are you guys all doing this? Like, why can't you just see?
Wait, question.
Definitely.
Is it too much though? Like, shouldn't it be a little more evil, kind of in my mind? Like, I feel that way a little bit because it's almost like setting them up too easily to lie later when they realize they've all been played. That's my
that they're all heroes. I would agree with that. I think that, the characters can definitely, especially in the beginning of a story, it's okay to have your characters be short-minded or, have significant flaws that they can later address in the story.
Right.
And kind of right off the get-go, a lot of these characters have some superior moral compass and stuff, which for a gang can be a little strange. I think it works, but I certainly wouldn't mind a character that's just a little bit more straight up corrupt and evil. Heading one of these gangs.
The closest person is Juan Carlos' friend, like the Mad Dog. I can't remember his name.
Alejandro?
Not Alejandro,
Oh.
the Mohawk guy.
He was
I
crazy.
forgot his name.
They the Revelators stopped him and they stole
bit
his.
Sam.
And then he's bit his hand off, or not off, but
Yeah, really bit him.
Yeah.
Talked to him, and he let him live anyway.
I was surprised about that.
I was too.
I was like, just kill him.
I think that there could be more hatred a little bit. I agree that there's maybe a bit soft on some of the characters. They're trying to lead a bit too much that all the characters, like Andrew, you said, have this moral compass. Specifically, I think when David did this sting operation that Ben just referenced to, where they took the purple fire.
Yeah.
They the son, Jesse Cohn's son, is it David? Right.
David, yeah.
He
David.
literally left all of them alive after they had just done multiple raids just to go and kill people, and to have this really important mission to be we're just gonna let them all live seemed to be very out of seemed to be just odd to me. And maybe
the one thing I thought was he wasn't trying to escalate the war. They was this is not a good.
You took from us. I'm taking it back.
But the
We're
one
not
thing
escalating.
I was surprised that he didn't kill that one guy that bit him. Because that's his showing weakness. And in the game world, you guys aren't gonna kill us even when I do that.
yeah.
Well, that's why Alan ended up killing the one guy.
Oh yeah,
Because Alan killed the one guy simply because he got goaded into trying to be almighty gang leader, and then he showed strength against him, and you can't do that.
But I think that was actually being shown. That was being portrayed in the book as a bad thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
However, for his own command of his own gangs,
he had to.
it's
Because the
like,
guy jumped him
yeah.
and he's gonna take his gun and what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You're gonna be a leader of a gang.
I think of it
You
this
have to
the-
lay down the law sometimes.
I'm curious to see where it goes, because it is a totally different gang dynamic than I've ever read before.
Well, and you have to also maybe think about that this could be a purposeful direction, because especially when they reference some of the older Revelators, that these guys went through the Pacific War, I think is what they call it, which sounds to be one of World War III essentially.
Yeah.
So these
It's
guys, I
essentially
think,
the cyber war between us and China,
I
which
think these
actually I
guys-
thought was pretty good, because that's probably how that war is going to go.
Yeah.
Cyber.
I think these guys maybe he could have
If it does
developed this a little bit
Yeah.
more. But I think they're trying to go with that people don't want war. They had this huge war. So these gangs are more necessity and not necessarily they don't want any of this, which they don't, but I think
because
kind of going for
I got
that.
the feeling these gangs were started the Revelators, and after the war they had all these veterans, and the county kind of collapsed and they had nothing to rely on.
Government wasn't helping people.
so they
Right.
formed a group.
Yeah, there certainly doesn't seem to be any local law enforcement or emergency response.
No,
And this got bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
the original purpose was survival, kind of, and
Yeah.
these other groups formed the same stuff, and they clashed against each other, and they had their own war. And
I do wish
one
I had a
group.
little backstory on why it's so race driven. It feels to me like if the economy really shit and all these people weren't as racist as they appear to be, it feels to me like there would be a little bit more mixed in each gang, and the gang wouldn't be so driven on race. That may be a statement by the author of some sort, but I'm always thinking about the future, right?
But
And then I think that the race gangs could exist. They obviously do.
yeah.
But then I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, but if the economy collapsed and you're really just forming gangs
For your area.
areas
I
and
guess
stuff,
they
I'm
kinda
like,
do have
you're gonna be more mixed. I mean,
they do have like mixed people in the communities, but like the DC2's majority Mexican area, and in Baton Rouge, it's majority blacks, and there's like
yeah, but I mean,
solid.
but like veterans. I'm thinking about veterans who came back from the war and started the Revelators.
But they went back home.
Yeah,
just
they went back home, but I mean, like,
So,
in
like,
the war, I'm sure they were fighting
Yeah.
neck and neck with anybody, and you become war brothers with somebody. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, maybe that's why they're not racist.
Yeah.
They just appear,
But like
yeah.
they went back to their own respective homes after the war, so
It's true.
in their own neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And like even now, like neighborhoods tend to be like mainly one race or another.
I will say the gang, it was indicated that the gang control is like race-based, but it was not uncommon for like Jesse under the code name John to walk into the Mexican bar.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
was like throwing up
I know, and that's
anything
one thing
about
that I thought was really interesting, and I'm wondering. I think what could have helped with that is having a bit more.
Like, was he being looked at funny, or was
Well,
it like totally normal? And
yeah,
it's just
I-
the gang that's race based, but everybody else's life is just.
That's what I was
normal.
saying. I think if he
what I
could
felt
have
like.
built a little bit more on the outside gang life, like in
Outside
these
life.
communities, like
Yeah.
the Revelators are in the big gang in this area, but within their community there is like all these races, but like so it's like perfectly normal for like a Mexican guy to be like walking into like a bar in the area that the Revelators are in, like, and obviously it must be the same since it seemed to be pretty normal for Jesse when they went the first time to go buy the
Well, at least
the
they
purple
didn't.
fire.
They didn't
Because-
indicate that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I
weird,
think for that particular bar that you guys are referencing, when when Jesse goes, he's in like DC2 territory,
Yeah.
and he goes to a bar, and he kind of gets in scot free. There's no consequences really. I think what that particular instance is in that case is it's more of a cultural thing. Like, it seemed like the bar he went into was more of a biker bar, quote unquote, and the Revelators have like a really big like biker, like Sons of Anarchy type culture.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be in the DC2 territory, so it was kind of like a little bit of a gray area where the patrons in this bar could be friendly, could be loyal to the DC2, or because it's a biker bar, maybe the DC2 doesn't really care about this bar.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the impression I got.
Juan Carlos' mom was there meeting a friend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Was it at the same bar? I thought it was like a different bar down the
No,
street.
no,
Because
no.
didn't he run after and he was chasing and
He
then
chased him in the truck for a while, but he gave up.
Yeah, he
but
lost
he,
them.
but he went back to the original bar. He didn't
No.
just. I thought he just went into a random bar in that
No,
area.
it
Yeah, he
wasn't
did- he
the
chased
original
him.
bar
Yeah, you're right.
with Lucy. He chased them into DC territory,
And then,
and
he just
then he lost them. And then it's like, I don't have my phone. And he went. I think it was a restaurant bar.
It was
actually.
a restaurant bar, yeah.
It wasn't like a bar.
Well, they were having a good time in there, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
I mean,
Yeah.
it laid a good impression on her at least.
Yeah.
It's just interesting things. Anyway, these are interesting little like thoughts that I have about the world that would be nice to have been expanded upon a little bit. It's like you said, Cherry, before we started. You're like, this post-apocalyptic world. I'm getting a ton of character and inner gang life, but I'm not really getting anything at all about. Like, it almost feels like it's just the world we live in.
Right.
I'm gonna go down to the burger joint, but there's just no cops anymore, and gangs
Just
are
gangs,
like more
kind of.
important.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we know? Is this because one thing is there probably. This is part one or the first book in a
Exactly.
series, so we don't know how many books this
I
is
think
going
it's
to
a
be.
trilogy.
It is a trilogy, at least that I'm aware of. And so, yeah, he might expend on that a ton.
Yeah, there might be more
Yeah.
room for.
I
that
know
in
his
some of the
second
other
book
books.
is out. I'm not sure about his third book.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But definitely he's very character focused versus what I would call world focused, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's certainly not taken away from the story.
I
So I
mean,
don't want to sound like
If
that.
you're gonna be focused on one or the other, it's better to be character focused because that's what drives engagement.
Yeah.
You get connected to these
Yeah.
characters. It's just a little bit lacking on the other side.
Yeah.
Right.
And And I guess we'll find out if it continues to be lacking. But certainly I wanted a little bit more tidbits because it helps me understand a little bit of these characters' context.
Yeah,
Right.
You know, like, why was Jesse able to do that? Just walk into this bar. But then later, you know, maybe it's just because the war started. But after the war started, they're like, oh, man, you guys did great. You've got this place on lockdown. You stopped me 3 times to check my skin color before I got anywhere near this place.
What? I don't know that part.
There's a part where one of the Revelators was coming in to visit the bar, one of the other hangouts, and they had stopped him multiple times, and he said, check my color. So it's then you're like, oh, maybe there is. But that's after the war had been declared, so... Of course, you're going to be precautious then.
Yeah.
But but it would have been nice to have a little understanding beforehand, context, so that we can apply that statement to the context.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing I was gonna say, one thing I will say too, though, with him, it's what's his name, Christian Sterling.
Yeah.
Yep.
He seems like he should start a restaurant because the one thing I did say, like, all right, has he built much of a world? Well, he definitely built a food palette for some of these restaurants, especially. So there's the drug lord, or the guy who's essentially like he owns a restaurant and has a bunch of drug side business stuff, and they talk quite a bit about the food that they can order from there, and all those meals that everyone's ordering. I'm like, man, this stuff's making me hungry.
Even in the very beginning, when they were when Sam was kind of pulling Marlowe's leg about ordering the vegan food for the girl or whatever, I'm like, ooh, that burger sounds good.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he has any background in food.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder. All right, I'm going to turn it up. I just was starting some randomized conversation there, but we're by no means stuck. Obviously, we get the war started, and we get it. I wouldn't really call it escalated yet. I mean, it like escalated before, maybe like midway through part 1.
Yeah.
And then
It seems like skirmishes right now.
now it's that's what I was gonna say. It feels like skirmishes. That's really good, Ben. I love that. Feels like skirmishes. They're just kind of like
Testing the waters,
Yeah.
poking at each other.
I mean, but they have done, like, that's one thing that it's been a bit gray for me is, like, no one wants to start this war, but they've done some, like, they had, like, some pretty big mass shootings. Like, they had, like, they organized big attacks that seemed to really anger the leaders, but at the same time...
still dragging their feet, yeah.
Yeah, had them kind of dragging their feet. So, for me, it felt like they had justification. Like, the one thing, like, Jesse's like, he made the announcement kind of at the bar. He's like, we're going to get these guys back. And they went out and they did these, like, drive-by shootings of a bunch of places. And then after that, it just kind of seemed to just take this giant step back. Like, okay, we did that. Now...
They're all just waiting to see.
We're gonna, like, I guess wait for their wait for the retaliation before we can go do something. It seemed like it was a very interesting. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen next and where this war is going to go. And is it actually happening already, or is
it's in process. I feel like the first step was they got firebombed. The Revelators did, and it was a surprise attack. And then after like a week, they raided like 10 of the other bars.
Yeah, the main
clubhouses of the other club.
Yeah.
And they just like gunned down everybody, and like they got away with that because it was a surprise attack, and there was no guards, no nothing. They just went down, stood outside, and opened up on the place. And so like once they're on guard, I mean they're not soldiers.
Change. Yeah.
So they rely on surprises or just drive-bys.
Yeah. But now you're right. They're both on guard. So it's kind of like, what's gonna happen? I mean, at the end we get the sniper attack, which amazed me. He's like, wow, that guy died from really far away. I have an idea. It's like, why was it your first thought not to just snipe the leader if that's what you wanted to do?
Right.
Well, I mean, in their setting, a sniper is unrealistic.
They're used to side-handed Uzis.
Yeah.
All the time.
I mean, the only reason this guy exists was because his father was in the army and he was a sniper. He got trained.
That's true.
And then trained his son.
Yeah, it's
Be a
probably not
sniper.
like gangs needing snipers, really.
Yeah,
at
it's
all.
really the more up close and
I do
personal.
think that scene was a bit funny, though. He's like looking at this like, man, this guy, that's where they shot from? That guy died from really far away. I have an idea.
Yeah.
Not that I'm shitting on it because I did enjoy the scene. I'm just saying it felt like, I don't know.
Yeah.
If I would have
One
spurred
thing
that thought that way.
I will say is I think that with that scene and a few of the other scenes have been a little over projected. Like kind of force the idea into us. Like,
I do have a comment.
that scene with the gun when the Jesse is like running away and meets the random kind of Hispanic looking lady, you're like immediately like, okay, that's Juan Carlo's mom, and a few other scenes that just seemed very like immediately like, okay, I know exactly what's gonna happen with this.
So I would like to hear the captain's view on this, but I do want to state something before. That's a great point, Cherry, and the reason is I realize, and this is something I read even in Stephen King's biography / writing book. He says it is like an author, especially a newer author's worst fear to like not get the idea they want to come across to the audience. And so when you said like it feels like some of these ideas are just
Kinda
like
shoved down your throat
shoved on us instead of like hinted at, minus the Breaking Bad little hidden gem there was pretty soft. But some of the other stuff was pretty harsh. Not necessarily bad, just harsh. So I'll leave it to you, but I was wondering if maybe that's a little of that. New author, wanted to make sure that idea gets across.
Yeah.
And then worrying,
Yeah.
was that too soft? I don't know if you'll all get it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm throwing it up there. I'm not sure, but...
Yeah, I would
definitely
agree with
something I
that
thought
sentiment for sure. And I don't particularly think that it's a terrible thing for this format of a book.
True.
Because the chapters are so short and the content is more on the lean side. You want to try to make what little text you have more impactful and get your
Fast.
meaning across faster than usual. So I think the way that his book is set up, it works. But I would definitely agree. Like, there are some parts where it seems a little bit, spoon-fed to the reader rather than, hinted at or get the reader involved to connect some of the dots. It's a little bit more spoon-fed than that. So, that may just be because he wanted short chapters and to-the-point text. May just be because he's still developing his craft. But I think it works for this book.
Yeah. That's a awesome point that you just brought up, reattaching that format to the fact that we're also on like extremely to the point commentary
Streamlined.
chapters. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Super
very streamlined.
So in that case, when I think about it from that context, because I didn't think about that. I was honestly thinking like, oh yeah, when you put that out though, it makes me think, oh yeah,
It might
You're
be
just trying to
intentional.
hit your
one thing
gun
that
and go.
I had a little bit of a gripe with was the flower. So as soon as Juan Carlo kind of picked the flower and gave it to his wife, I'm like, okay, so you immediately know that Jesse Cohn's gonna have that flower at some point.
and that Juan Carlos going to see it.
And Juan Carlo, and exactly. So I was immediately like, okay, those two are coming to a head soon. As soon as he gave her the flower, and it did happen pretty much right away. But one thing that bothered me with that whole scene is Juan Carlo looking from a binoculars for like a mile and a half away, seeing like a flower fall out of his pocket. Now we don't know exactly how he's going to react to that. I'm severely hoping he doesn't like immediately be like, oh, my mama is like with this guy, like, and just know from that.
Yeah.
Because first of all, like, you're seeing a flower fall out from like a mile and a half away with binoculars. And how do you know it's a flower? It's white, which means it probably looks like a sheet of paper falling out, or like anything like that. If it would have been like, oh, this is like a rare flower that like only blooms at this time, and I specifically got it for her, and it's this bluish, yellowish color, then maybe I think it's more plausible that he's just like, what? There's no way he had. But I'm just hoping that the next chapter.
That's interesting, because you actually bring up a good point. What is his reaction going to be? Did he see it? And if so, that would be a little bit like, oh,
I'm
really?
I'm hoping he comes at it soft, being like, okay, now the wheels are turning. Not that he's gonna, in the next chapter, confront his mom and be like, have you been with Jesse Cohn or something like that? Because even if it is a flower, like, the chances of someone just having a flower, granted, it's a little rare, but it's not like it's impossible. And
I like the idea of the wheels turning. Ben. He's like, nah, I know to kill immediately.
I'm saying let's not walk around with flowers in my pocket.
I honestly do like the idea of it to like triggering a thought that doesn't go anywhere for a long time.
Yeah.
But then comes back later. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like it's gonna come up.
I feel like at the pace of this book, it's definitely going to come up like immediately.
Really fast, yeah.
Wham! Next chapter, it's going to be like, wow.
Yeah, but this puts...
Gotta kill my mom now.
That whole scene is like... does not... Like, you're literally kind of like rooting for like all teams to come together and like everything to be okay. And that scene happened, and I'm just like, well, everyone's fucked. They're all dying. Because Jesse is no way going to just let the death of his like best friend, his war buddy... just go like okay, and there's no way that like that any reaction that he has isn't gonna just escalate this war to like breaking points like this.
So
crazy
that's
spot.
what I was gonna say. Okay, so this is Brett bet time.
But he is
sleeping
sleeping with the mom of the other side, so it might
and
soften.
she's the best woman he's had since.
Yeah, but he's not just gonna be like, I'm gonna forgive your son. He would look her in the eye most likely and be like, I'm gonna kill you.
I'm pretty sure that Carlo would also look his mom in the eye.
And say, I'm gonna kill your boyfriend.
So here's the Brett bet then. So the question, here's my thought first, just to frame this up. I think that the idea is that they're all being framed into fighting each other, whether it's from the government or the quote unquote council. I don't know, or if they're
Might
one
be
of
the same.
Right? Good call. We don't know yet.
Interchangeable with a lot of people on the
or
council.
intertwined somehow. But point is, I think that throughout the books, the idea is going to be that these gangs gotta ally themselves together in order to defeat that particular purpose. However, that's why they're all good guys. However, I'm curious about this because of the fact that this happened. So what I'm wondering is, because this happened, Jesse's not going to let it go. So Jesse's got to die. Jesse's son takes over. So that's my Brett bet, right? Is Jesse going to die? I say yes. Jesse's son's going to take over. But I also think Juan Carlos got to die. And so I think Jesse's girlfriend / Juan Carlos' mom's got to take the gang back over, which she's been... said multiple times, this girl has already run the gang and will take it over soon. Yeah. And then the gangs can ally.
Interesting.
That's reaching a bet because I'm literally claiming a bunch of what ifs.
That is a very... All right, so you're going to record this one, Andrew. So the Brett bet is that Juan Carlo and Jesse Cohn will die, and their son, the son / mother, and the mother will take over the gang.
Well, here's how I was thinking about this Brett bet. That's what I'm saying. But I say that each one should be its own.
Two Brett bets.
Sure.
So,
2 and 1.
Well, it's actually 3, right? Is it 3?
I don't know. What are the 3?
It's that Jesse dies, number 1.
And his son takes over.
Number 2, son takes over. Number 3, Juan Carlo dies. And number 4...
I think those can be combined because you pretty much know that if Jesse or Juan die, their son / mother is going to take over.
Okay.
I think those
so it'll
will
be 2 bets then.
Yeah.
I think that it's possible that... Well, then I read the whole scene where like the son's eyes connected for a moment, and they almost had this like force moment where they knew they were going to be crossing lightsabers, but then become buddies.
Cool.
So I have to think about that, but I still like making the challenge, even if I'm totally fucking wrong. That I will take over. So I'm going to go for it.
Cool. All right, it's in the books. Jeff, I am going to agree with 50% of your Brett bet. I do believe that you are completely correct and that Jesse is not going to make it. I agree wholeheartedly with that. However, I'm going to reverse the second part of the Brett bet, and I'm going to say that Juan Carlo lives, but his mother, I think her name is Mariana.
Is it Mariana or Juliana?
Mariana, I think.
Mariana. She is the one who's going to die, and Juan Carlo will remain in control of his group.
Wow.
Doesn't it seem too convenient that both Jesse and Juliana will die?
Mariana.
Sorry. Mariana.
That's actually, dang it, Andrew. I was originally going with the opposite of that, but that kind of, I was actually saying that,
that one felt like the easy one.
I was thinking that Jesse would live, but Juan Carlo would die, and then it would be the fight there where the leader, Jesse, has to be against the rival gang being run by a girlfriend, or like a girl that he's been deeply intimate with and loved.
But what's the point of having David in it all then?
Yeah, that's true. I honestly think that none of them are going to die. So
None
it's
will
a no
die.
for me on both.
Okay.
Even though I would like that it'd be a really cool twist, and I would really enjoy that if Jesse lived and Juan died, and then it was the
And David died, and you're like,
David,
David, that character? But oh well.
yeah. Well, because what that could do is David dying could be a vehicle for it to be impossible for Jesse to make up with the DC-12.
So much like he was a main character.
These two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, he might just end
that's
up
why I'm
being
just saying they're both living.
Was FF12?
Which one?
FF12. He could always be a Vaughn. He's the main character, but actually
no,
Jesse's the main character.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later, but we'll get Ben's
Ben's
opinion first.
Sorry guys.
I'm gonna go ahead and agree with Andrew's bet.
Nice.
I'm glad I made it more interesting with my highly unlikely and my opinion thoughts.
All right, cool. So this is an interesting spread we got here. We have Jeff for both characters die. I switch it up and say that Jesse does die as well, but Mariana dies. Ben is the same way, and then Josh is a complete flip of Jeff saying no, none of those characters will die.
Ben, really, to cover all of our bases, Ben should have just done the opposite of you, Andrew, and then we would have had every possibility. Someone would have won.
Right.
Right. It's probably going to be that one.
Right.
That'd be the worst one for interview ever if that happens, because that's the one that I was mulling over.
Yeah.
But who do you think is the first character to die coming up?
So I wanted
We got, Lucy,
yeah.
We got the friends. We got that guy who bites people.
Is his name Billy? Is it Billy? Is he the one who bit him?
Oh,
No,
Billy
Billy the Beanie died or whatever. Billy the Benny.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That guy.
I wanted to make a comment as we think about this because that's a good Brett bet. First person
It
to
is,
die.
yeah.
Simply because I thought the reason that we were being introduced to so many goddamn characters in the first place in every single chapter, like in the book, was that when the war started, somebody was gonna die.
A lot of characters to kill off. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, it must be just like keeping them in the back. Keeping them in the back. Mm-hmm. Go for it.
But we got to think that there are a good 2 more possible books. So even if at the end of this, we may not necessarily...
There's enough characters and enough more characters that are coming in those books that we could have killed somebody off already.
Yeah. I think who is going to die?
I have a thought. Oh, this is a Brett bet though, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, is this a Brett bet?
Yeah, first
All
character to
right,
die
Brett bet too.
coming up in this next section.
Jeez.
I think it's going to be Marco's girlfriend, Connie.
You monster. That's
Simply because
the
it makes
waitress?
it...
the waitress.
If I was a writer, it makes it really easy for Marco to never want to stop the war, and then it makes David's position as he takes over the gang really difficult
Worse.
because he's going to have to ally himself with Juan Carlos.
Look at
mom.
you, Jesse. You're already saying Jesse's gonna die. You just like
Yeah. That's a
Solidify
two-parter.
it.
Yes, I just
All
worked that all the
following.
way into my Brett bet.
That's interesting. Dude,
It also works out because then Lucy would have more of a role in the.
Which is going to make it even weirder.
Yeah.
Well, Lucy's definitely bad guy, part of the government or the council.
She's a spy.
She's definitely spy.
Definitely a spy.
I think Lucy.
Interesting.
I want it to be Lucy. Lucy's next person to die.
Lucy the spy to die.
I think it's gonna be Sam
Ooh.
Sam.
Interesting.
Oh.
Wow.
from David's friend.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Comedic. What are they going to do? Because Marco's dialogue is so similar to David's.
Yeah.
They're like akin.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I think I could see it though, because I could see Sam just had like the not breakout moment, but he's now like on good terms with Marco's girlfriend.
Connie.
Connie. And so like they just like kind of had the little hug and they're like, oh, we're buddy now, and then boom, he dies.
I could see that. For me, I'm the last one to go. I'm actually incredibly shocked that Jesse hasn't died already. So I'm gonna say Jesse.
Okay.
Not that I want to see him go, because I think it's really neat that he's got a parent with a son combo for his main characters, which
Yeah.
you never ever see in any story ever. But
I know,
I'm really
right?
shocked that he's survived this long, even. So I think he doesn't have much longer.
Captain, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The fact that he lived through the sniper shot that we watched, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, maybe he'll be around longer than I thought. But I was literally waiting for him to die in every chapter that
Right.
he came up
Same
in.
here.
I'm like, what? Why is he still alive? Speaking of which, what if this happened? What if Sam finally made it awesome with Connie? But then Connie and Sam end up having an affair. Therefore, Marco kills Sam. Sam being the first to die, Josh being right, and also ruining the dynamic of the
Ben
game.
said Sam.
That would be pretty
If
dramatic.
HBO bought it, that's what would happen.
That would
if
be-
HBO bought it, that's what would happen.
Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of drama
What
in
if
that. I kind of like that, even though it's
The waitress
unfortunate for the characters.
killed Lucy.
What's that?
What if the waitress killed Lucy?
Whoa,
jealousy.
I could see that.
She already choked the bitch out.
Yeah.
Cat fight.
HBO! Hire us, baby!
Well, we got to see what
I like
happens
it.
in the rest of this book. So I
Yeah.
think that's a
We
good-
got enough.
That's
Let's
a
go.
hard. You know what?
I'm just
There's a
joking.
very good likely chance we're all just gonna lose this. It's
Yes.
gonna be that Mexican guy, the Mad Dog guy. Like,
Hold on. We are talking about the first to die of like anybody
The
that's
characters.
yeah,
Not just
Mad-
some like.
yeah,
like,
not
Yeah.
randos, right?
Not revenge shit.
Okay, Mad
Right.
Dog might be.
yeah. What's his name? We can't. Has anyone remembered what his name was?
I thought it was something like pretty normal.
I did. Yeah, I did not jot his
Yeah.
down in my character.
Let me find it. Hey, hang on, I got this.
So
further-
All right, I have a Brett bet too.
Oh.
Which gang is going to be the first gang to realize that they're being played by the? Well, this is my assumption already that they're all being played by the council.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I think most of you guys probably agree with this, but which gangs could be the first to realize it? I think it's going to be Alan, the
Young Guns.
the
Young
young
Guns.
Guns.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a Brett bet because everyone's going to agree
I'm
with
gonna
me.
agree with that. Yeah.
I agree. With
I would
you as
agree with
well.
that as well.
That guy's too smart.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
too smart.
Who? How about this then? What are the first gangs that are gonna form an alliance?
Ooh.
Oh, I have a thought there.
I think it's going to be
I'll
Young
wait for you
Guns
guys.
allying with the Revelators.
Okay, first alliance.
I have a thought on this one.
Let's
But
do
I
it,
wanna-
Jeff.
You want it? You okay?
Oh, before.
I'm gonna spin this. I think what's gonna happen is there's not gonna be a first alliance. I think the Young Guns are gonna realize they're getting played, realize who's not being played yet, and they're actually gonna stop the war between the Revelators and the
DC.
DC 12
DC2.
or DC.
Well,
2, sorry.
they're going to have to go to one of them first. Maybe not. You're right. They could just pop up.
How they're like stop
Yeah.
fighting guys.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
Hey,
All right.
He's probably going to use like drones or something. I'm going to lose a lot of Brett bets because I'm being really ballsy with this.
I'm gonna make a really ballsy out of left field alliance projection here as well. Because I think, Josh, you're probably right. But I think there's also a good chance of a alliance between the Rowdy Boys, who are the enemies of the Young Guns in New Orleans. I think they have a chance to ally with either Revelators or DC2. And I'm going to maybe say that they ally with DC2, which is pretty out of left field. But I could see there being some shared themes and some shared interests as DC2 is moving up it further into North America. I could see maybe, the Rowdy Boys allying with them to get a piece of the action and to finally take down the Young Guns.
Andrew, I was when you were saying that, it sparked in my mind. I'm like, you know what? Actually, it could be Young Guns and the Rowdy Boys. Actually,
oh, those two.
Because Alan figures out what's happening and then goes to the Rowdy Boys and like we're being played.
Right.
Except I think it's gonna be harder now that Alan
Rowdy Boys has
killed.
to die.
I
Seems like a
Bad guy.
I like what Captain said because I think that if that does happen, this is the story point, right? So the Rowdy Boys ally with DC2, which forces Josh's Young Guns to ally with the Revelators.
Yeah.
And that would cause a bigger war. However, if Andrew wins it, that means that happened first.
Yeah, that's
right. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, it's Manuel.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Manuel asked from his seat,
Should've known that.
craning his neck to meet Juan Carlos' eyes.
Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and say then that it's gonna be the Young Guns and DC2.
Interesting.
Oh.
You're going Young Guns and DC2?
Wow, we all have a different one so far.
Wait, who's Jeff? Have you announced yet?
I said that actually it's
No
really going to
alliance.
be a three-way tie
Ah.
because it's going to be the Young Guns coming over and allying all three of them together. But now that you guys have said this, I'm like, that's too short-sighted. There's three whole books.
But are you saying that they have like a council and like the three groups are gonna meet and form an alliance?
Nah, I think it's going to be more like Avenger-esque.
It's
It's going to be like literally they're fighting, and at this vital moment in the war, maybe the leaders are about to kill each other. A gigantic Black Panther airship is going to fly into the book, and then Alan is going to dive down and basically halt the battle and say, "You guys are getting played."
Now that we've
How do you
all
like
announced
that?
this, it's literally going to be like next chapter DC2 and the Revelators like make up and they're now partners and we're just like, we all lost.
Yeah.
I'm just joking, by the way, on how that happened. However, I do think that it's going to be some kind of a strange moment like that. Actually, the truth is, I don't think that. I think it's going to be a lot more standard story, but I'm feeling fun with this first half. I want to test the unknown a little bit.
Cool.
I do have one thing that I want to talk about, transitioning very quickly off of that. But I think, so the Young Guns, they're... My first immediate thought, as soon as the really attractive lady came and wanted Alan to build the system to be able to track the council,
Gabriella,
I'm like, okay,
I
this
think,
is
right?
like a
Gabriella is her name, I
yes,
believe?
Gabriella. I was immediately thinking, okay, Gabriella's bad, and she's like using them, and my whole idea was that the information she was giving to the Young Guns was actually flawed, and she was trying to incite the Young Guns to attack first, even though the what's the other gang?
The Rowdy Boys.
The
Rowdy
Rowdy
Boys.
Boys. The Rowdy Boys, like literally just like on their own, totally fine. All of a sudden, start getting attacked by the Young Guns, and like we're gonna retaliate. So they're trying to start these gang wars.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about it, and I don't know if that makes as much sense because Gabriella had Alan build the surveillance thing. But she was nice enough to let him keep it.
Right.
Meaning that...
How's she gonna take it?
That's true, but if she wanted him to build... If she was on the council, she wouldn't want anyone to have access to council information.
But if she's on the council, why would she go to him to build it?
Yeah,
Right?
I think
That's-
she's not
yeah.
on the council.
I don't know.
But
That's why... Originally my thought was...
she could be on the council and she's just doing it to get in and then like get in the fight.
But she already revealed
doesn't-
a few council people. That it seems like she's
Yeah, she
looking for
did.
the council.
I feel like she's not, but
it could
it's
be.
not
You're
just
right.
because-
You're right.
My initial thought was she has to be, and then I'm like, after like she lets him keep the system he built, I'm like, that just seems too like good. So is there a good third party or like whatever team she's on? That'd be fourth now or fifth or whatever party that is behind all of these other like groups and behind. So we've got all of our gangs, and we have this mysterious force, presumably Kind Eyes and Dark Eyes, that are trying to elicit these gang wars. Probably, I think, just to like kill off the gangs so they can take over and get more power, or because they think they're getting too powerful, something like that. But is there now another party on top of that that's also trying to counter them? That's maybe also hiding in the shadows and is fairly strong.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do feel like
I'm curious
it's a
about that.
fourth party.
Yeah, you think it's totally fourth party, or fifth party, sixth party, wherever. How many?
She
parties
does
you got?
have quote unquote friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and she says that, and she obviously there was I think, the more I think about it, I think there was the motive of like providing him like, oh, you should fight the rowdy boys. I think like, yeah, she wants them to survive, but I think she also wanted them specifically to have what she requested be built. Like, maybe she's like, sees them as a counter to what the council's trying to do, but she can't come out and be like, I'm against the council, so she's like, I'm going to work with them to realize what the council's doing so they can come out against the council.
Yeah.
Type stuff.
I could see
I
that.
think that's where that kind of whole section's going.
Essentially, if that theory stands, Gabrielle's on the level. She's kind of a good guy, but she's playing the young guns and she's using them as a pawn, kind of, to accomplish her end goal. I think I would agree with that appraisal. I think Gabrielle's on the level. When Alan questioned her about why she came to him, it seemed like a genuine response to me, but there's still plenty of book left. So,
Speaking of that response, before we, get to the end here, I felt very much like Alan, who immediately commented on how smoking hot she was in his head. Then super smart guy is just like, why do you want this? Oh, this little piece of information? I'm not going to inquire anymore about you. I felt like I would have demanded a lot more. Like, who are your friends? We're going to have a partnership. Let's
need to
get
know
some
who
more
they
meetings
are.
going up.
Well, and
I'm like, what?
also,
This is so
yeah.
And then
cowboy.
he builds it, and he builds it in like a month. This super program.
Yeah.
It's like,
And it's like, has he never thought of how useful something like that would be? I guess maybe you need to know what you're searching for in order for it to be useful. Because you need their name,
right.
yeah.
which is interesting.
But he actually knows all the names of the Rowdy Boys because that's what they used it for.
Yeah.
And they like totally sidestepped all the plans and ambushed them a bunch of times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be a pretty important tool later in the plot to kind of drive forward some pivotal like attacks and like
It did feel
gathering
very easy,
information.
though.
Yeah, it did feel it seemed a bit too easy for him. He's just like, I just logged into the databases. Like, you got to know what the databases are. and
Right.
use it.
Yeah.
However,
He's
for
a
the
genius.
bullet point form of this story, it's almost like it's bare bones. So, but that's almost like one of those things where you have a world building and you get to know a little bit about
and we
it.
also have to admit, this is so far. We've got a whole half a book and potentially two other books that are going to have a lot more building in it, so
Right.
that we could probably see, and we'll start to slowly gather a lot more information as we go through this.
Right.
I'm not necessarily forcing us out here, but any final thoughts? Like
My final thought is in the Young Guns. My biggest problem with the Young Guns is I want to know what video game they're playing. Like, they're gonna go sit down and play a video game. Like, okay, you can just say like they're playing Street Fighter or something. Just
Copyright infringement.
that's fine.
It was.
Name that
That's
stuff
not
all the
fine.
time. Yeah.
Can you say that?
You can say that.
Or he could make up a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of
the fighting
Make
game.
up a counselor.
I just
play
imagine
something.
them playing. It's exact. I imagine them constantly playing either Smash or Mario Kart. The two games. That's just all they're doing.
It's kind of funny, and let me know. I might be completely alone on this, but the minute he introduced the character Panda, I'm like, oh, I kind of like this guy. And like, the more you find out about him, you're like, oh man, I really like this Panda dude. Did you guys have that as well or no?
I like Panda a lot.
Yeah.
He seems like, but I'm very scared. Panda's probably gonna die.
No.
I mean, how much do you like a character that steals chips from a kid?
But he's
He's a
like
comic
Of
relief.
course, Dross would like a character who steals tricks from a kid.
He's a comic
But he's
relief.
also
You get
kinda
too many
like-
chips. I'm a big guy.
Well,
Yeah.
he's like the older brother that like secretly loves all the kids, but
Yeah.
kind of like picks on them and like does the. He's like, I gotta be the older brother to these kids, so punch him in the Charlie horse right in the arm. Like
Yeah.
All right. That was Ben's. That was very nice. And that one, I'm not counting you as captain. It was a great ad. And by the way, it doesn't have to be final thought. We're not necessarily ending. I'm just like kind of.
No pressure.
I'll go
Josh.
out towards again. I love the very subtle Breaking Bad reference.
Yeah,
in
there you go.
And kind of aligned with that whole restaurant company. Like every time I was reading about their menu options, I'm like, man, I really want to eat at this place because it sounds amazing. So open a restaurant if the book writing doesn't work out.
Before we get to the captain, because I think his might be pretty fun. Mine. So this comes from me podcasting Sanderson's writing podcast, and they were talking about like writing from different characters' perspectives, like a guy trying to make a realistic, like female intercourse or a female. There was both on the podcast making a realistic male inner voice. Clearly, there's a lot of male inner voices in this book. And the one thing I thought was really interesting and kind of like I felt almost like, oh man, I want to know, is when the fight broke out between the redhead and the girlfriend.
waitress?
Yeah. It basically was told from a perception of a distance, and there was no dialogue, and they just and she was saying something, and
Yeah, you
Spitfire
could just see
back,
the
and it was
eyes just get, like,
Spitfire,
angrier.
eyes, Spitfire, fighting, and then I was kind of like,
Yes.
I would have loved to have heard
Yeah.
the dialogue, or like to test it a little bit there.
Been a
and,
fly
so
on a
my-
wall and overheard that
Yeah.
conversation.
Well, and I think that might have been fun, but I wonder if that was maybe just like, I got no idea how to make these girls hate each other, but I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So anyway, just a thought. Not necessarily a downer on the story or anything, but something that I think might have been fun.
Last thoughts. My one thing that we didn't touch on too much is the main. Who I'm assuming is going to be the main character, David.
Until he dies.
Yeah,
Just
right.
joking. I said the opposite, actually.
Right. Because the first chapter is from his perspective. And I noticed this when I was writing earlier. Is it's hard to come up with a main character who is much more than an observer. And I feel like in the first several chapters, David was simply just an observer character, not really getting involved in any of the action himself. I think what could draw readers into rooting for his character a little bit more is if he's actively engaged in some of his, bantering with his friends or like the discussions that he has. It's really the first scene that we even get any good internal monologue from David is when Jesse's given the speech in Latin when he's like, yeah, we're gonna go take these guys down, and then we finally get a little bit of David's inner thought process. I'm thinking that a lot of like readers could get drawn in a little bit faster if you have David actively engaged in something that's happening and you get more of his personal perspective and character. And I know I'm guilty of that in my own writing as well. So it's something that's a little bit easier said than done. But I think the beginning of the story definitely could have benefited from a little bit more personality or direct involvement from David specifically.
That's actually a cool insight you brought, because I even talked about in the beginning getting confused for a second on who the main character was in that first chapter. Was it Marco or was it David? Because it started with David, it described his background, but it went into Marco's monologue and wants and needs to get in touch with this lady.
Right.
And then by the time we were at the next chapter, I was like, wait, who was the main character? Was it Marco or was it David? I'm like, oh, it was David?
Yeah.
I thought he just got poked in the tummy in that scene. Because he was actually being... But you know what, though? You're right. That's easier said than done.
It's hard.
Great insight.
Yeah, it's hard because you want to... It's fun to develop side characters and have them have their own cool arcs, but you can't forget about the main character at the same time. So.
That's if he is. Somebody said
he might
that
not
he might die. Who did?
He might not
Who
be.
did? Somebody voted for that.
No, none of us voted for David to die.
None of us voted for David.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My bad.
That's what I said Ben should have done instead of voting with Andrew. He should have taken the David
He
dies
could have
and
done the David dies.
Juan lives.
Yeah. Great insight, man. We'd also like to see the chef's pickles.
Yeah.
That scene was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. Very good. Any other thoughts, guys?
No?
That was part one, folks, of American Parable by Christian Sterling. We quite enjoyed it, and it's really fun to read writers in the beginning of their craft. I know that sounds strange. We're all used to Brandon Sanderson's and Stephen King's.
Right,
Well
masters.
done, you know? But, like, there is a lot of fun in reading stuff that's up and coming, and I quite enjoyed this. I hope it didn't sound too much like we didn't, but we did. I definitely see a lot of potential for Christian to continue developing the craft, and that's coming from a long-time reader and a wannabe writer by a lot. This guy's quite a bit further ahead of me, and
Yeah, looking forward to part two.
yeah, I'm looking forward
See
to part
where this
two.
goes, and hopefully I win some Brett bets.
Yeah, let's find out. Well, of course, we've got more than one book, but we'll keep them coming along. So for this podcast, we'd also like to thank Christian Sterling for giving us freebies to read,
Yes.
even though I bought it anyway.
Thank you.
I was like, I want it on my Kindle. But sweet. We enjoy that kind of thing. So we're all literature lovers as it goes. With that said, holy crap, I've got like nothing left to cheers.
Yeah,
Same here.
Oh,
I'm out.
we all finished our drinks.
I'm thinking, hang on. Okay. We can't do that to the crowd. Hang tight real quick, guys.
Really quick refresh. Oh, man.
Jeff will put in an intermission over this, just like the little dancing candies. Except it'll all be alcohol across the screen. Just like bottle of vodka and wine.
Some
just
arms
like
and legs on it.
Yeah, just like prancing across like an old theater stage with the curtains drawn.
Perfect.
Let's all go to the movies.
Dude, these revelators are getting me a refill on this purple drink. I'm really digging it. It's really awesome. It tastes really it's explosive with flavor.
Is that drink fire?
It's fire. Nice.
Guys, we timed it too well. We literally finished our drinks for the end.
Right before the end.
Instead, we just have to have a little mini cheers to American Parable Part 1. And that way we can finish the podcast appropriately. Or the captain will excommunicate me.
Had his glass
Right.
refilled magically.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. And cheers to you,
Andrew.
Capitan. And that is a wrap.
That's a wrap. Sweet.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Lit Literature. If you liked us, please check out our social media at Lit Literature 1 at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't hesitate to join in on the conversation. We appreciate the conversation, the questions, book recommendations, anything of that sort. Join in right on the social media websites. And don't forget to check us out at our website, litliterature.com, and our upcoming projects, though there aren't many now besides Lit Literature, you can find at lyket.net, Lyket. We do have a Patreon account, but if you truly want to support us, please like and share. Cheers.